All right, let me take you through this story, an interesting one in a climate like ours. Supreme Court ruling on consent, marriage and criminal law is igniting a nationwide debate. Now, the apex court held that a married woman who enters into a physical relationship with another man cannot file a rape case on the ground that the relationship was based on a false promise of marriage. So basically, in simple terms, if a man has had sex with a woman and promised her to marry and then later did not marry her, the court says that cannot be called as rape. A bench of justices, B.V. Nagaratna and Ujjal Bhuyan, ruled that such a claim is legally untenable because the woman was not eligible to marry due to the subsistence of her marriage. So the court made it clear that this legal embargo flows from subclause I of Section 5 of the Hindu Marriage Act 1955, which categorically bars marriage if either party has a living spouse. The ruling came while quashing criminal proceedings against a lawyer accused by a woman advocate of rape on the pretext of marriage. The bench noted that the complainant was already married when the relationship began, calling it a classic case of consensual relationship turning acrimonious. In this case, the court order quashed criminal proceedings against a lawyer on a complaint filed by a woman advocate alleging that he had raped her on the false promise of marriage. The court has also remarked that both individuals ought to have shown restraint instead of drawing the state into a personal conflict. The bench delivered its verdict while hearing an appeal against a March last year order of the Chhattisgarh High Court, which had refused to quash the proceedings arising from an FIR registered in Bilaspur district on Feb 2025. Supreme Court further observed that even if a false promise of marriage is assumed for the sake of argument, such a promise would be neither legally enforceable nor capable of being acted upon, since the complainant was ineligible for marriage from the date of the alleged offence till the registration of the FIR. Now, issuing a wider caution, the court said judges must be extremely careful in identifying genuine rape cases, stressing that the essential ingredients of offence must be clearly established, especially in view of the law being misused today. So, did the Supreme Court draw a firm line to prevent misuse of rape laws? Does the judgment risk narrowing protections for women in complex relationships? Let me quickly bring in our guests on this. If I could welcome Dr. Rajiv Nanda, Senior Advocate, Supreme Court of India, Dr. Charu Walikhanna, who's author and former member of NCW. Dr. Walikhanna, would you welcome a judgment like this? A married woman has said that she was in a physical relationship with a man who promised to marry her. And then he refused to. Eventually, she goes to court, and the court says, "But you were already married, so how can you call this rape?" So I don't understand this. This entire case where the woman has gone to court saying that she's been raped while she was already in a relationship, but she was already married. So give us a little more clarity, if you will. And is this fair to the woman here who's gone to court?
I totally do not agree with what the Supreme Court has said, that it's not legally tenable. It is legally tenable. Section 69 of BNS very clearly says deceitful means or promise to marriage. Having intercourse by deceitful means or promise to marriage, which you don't intend to fulfill. Now, when you say deceitful means can be an inducement, it can be suppressing your identity or making, some kind of luring the girl with a employment or promotion. Now, in this case, they say that because she was already married. Let me tell you, in India, women are very naive and they very easily believe people. And our own surveys say that there's a very high of violence against women in domestic relationships and intimate partner relationships. So if a woman, a young girl who is naive enough and has a toxic relationship, in a marital relationship, if she gets involved with a man in a relationship and he promises to marry her, on the basis of that, she destroys her own marital life. She says maybe she is going to move for a divorce. How can you say it's legally untenable? Yes, it's legally untenable that he cannot marry her at that particular time. But because you can only have one wife and you have to be an adult. But maybe the promise was made that you get divorced. And on the basis of that, she left her husband. She left her. This whole section, let me tell you, one has to understand the niceties and the spirit behind the section. The section is to advance justice for women and to deter persons, men, I would say, when I say person, deter men from indulging in exploitative conduct. So to say that it is legally untenable is wrong, because she could, maybe he made a false promise of marriage that you get divorced and then we'll marry. And on that ground, on the basis of that, lured by his promise, she moved further. She spoiled her marital life. She left society. She must have become now a
But I
laughing
just
stock. And the
what
stigma is all
baffles
on
me
her.
is that agreeing to have sex and willingly consenting for a physical relationship and just verbally believing that, okay, he's saying that he promises to marry me, but I mean, I'm going to wait until then, but until then I'm willing to have sex with him, and then I come around later when he decides not to say that this is rape. I don't understand that. If there is consent, then there is consent. To go back to say no, this has been rape, it.
That is the law. That is the statute. That is what Section 69 says. Without intention to fulfill the marriage. It's another matter that maybe they fell out. But without any intention of wanting to marry her, he lured her in a relationship and had sexual intercourse with her. And that is what is a crime.
Dr. Rajiv Nanda, if I could have you come in on this, what's your view on this? On consensual sex, and later the woman saying he promised to marry me and basically it was rape. He misguided me, misused me.
See, first of all, you have to understand here what is
no, don't assume that it is. Sorry to interrupt. Don't assume that that it's consensual sex. Maybe she genuinely believed him. We can't assume that she was not naive enough to believe him, and she had consensual sex.
She's an adult. What is genuinely believing, ma'am? She's an adult.
She's an adult, but there is a section. Obviously, the parliament has passed an act after much thought. The representatives of the country know what the women go through, what is the mindset of the women. And they have included this section, and these are the specific ingredients of the section.
Okay, let's hear Dr. Rajiv as well. Let's hear Dr. Rajiv. What's your take on that?
See, first of all, we have to understand what a rape is. Rape is a physical sexual abuse without the consent of a woman. Now, to have a physical relationship is not an offense. It can be a consensual relationship between two adults. And it says different in a thing that in case of minor, the consent will not be important, but that's not the point here. Point is, in a case where two adults are there, if a woman is forced into a sexual relationship, I'll use the word forced, which includes lurement also, but excludes the consensual relationship.
Absolutely.
If a relationship is consensual, there is nothing wrong in it. And that's what the Supreme Court has held. That if a consensual relationship goes acrimonious, it does not and should not be brought into a criminal justice system as rape, because the rape definition strictly will not be applicable here. The relationship, and mind it here, in this case, the complainant, as I'm informed, was herself a lawyer. It is not a question of a ordinary person who doesn't understand the niceties of law. She was herself a lawyer, and the person against whom the complaint has been filed too was a lawyer. So it is a relationship which was with consent, which was entered into a physical relationship. And if I say that she was lured into this promise by, I mean, even if it is believed that she was given some kind of promise, this promise was incapable of being performed. She understood this. Now, whether she would be lured, she was lured or she was not lured is a question of fact, which perhaps in the given circumstances, which Supreme Court has said, will not be applicable, because both the parties were not so naive and they were not person on the street that they didn't know what the necessities of law were. She was herself a lawyer and minded that the criminal justice system in India, which is a right given to a woman if the forced sexual relationship is done to her, is a right given to her so that she can get the person, the accused, punished. But this right is not an absolute right. This has certain things, certain parameters to be followed. It has to be a forced relationship. It has to be against her consent. Here, if the consent was there, maybe whatever was the reason, I mean, it is immaterial here. It is not that question that she was lured into it and some village side woman or somebody who was not even knowing as to what she is undergoing. It was a consensual relationship she entered into, and if it went acrimonious, I mean, it could not have led to a criminal justice motion against her.
See, if the consent,
the court has sounded its verdict and
deception.
Yeah.
I am saying the consent is not valid because the consent was given under a deception, and this is a matter of trial. It is only in the trial will the right facts come out. That was it a consensual? Was it a deception? Did he have an intention? How did she move forward after he made the promise, which he didn't intend to keep? What action did she? This is all a matter of trial. And by quashing the FIR, the trial will not take place, and we're only making, our own assumptions, presumptions, surmises that the girl knew everything and she's just, this is an acrimonious.
The court has given its verdict. Yeah. The court's given its verdict. We've got to see if this becomes precedent going forward. Thanks very much, both of you, for joining us on this much needed topic.